acts of militarization of the South China Sea. China will probably become the spark for a third world war. Although Beijing launched a lot of reasons to justify cosmetic its illegal actions, but they cannot hide a fact: countries are increasingly alienating China. Recently, the site of the US The Bitbag reported recently, but he forecast the outbreak of a third world war are constantly appearing. The context that military action may be increasingly clear. Chinese East Sea. It stresses, forces warships. The Chinese Navy has conducted military exercises close to actual combat strength in the sea close to the east in order to enhance operational efficiency. This forecast the war is on status very close, including China, for the variable fighter taking off and landing at the Fiery Cross aims to treat patients. But the military role of the island is indisputable. Certainly the neighboring countries of China considered it a threat. These countries also used military measures to counter chemical. Finally, if the South China Sea dispute cannot be resolved, the risk global war broke out is inevitable. Quote, "Declaration of war with China is inevitable." On 18 quarters. The British Daily Telegraph has published this article and analysis that the ancient military of China, Sun Tzu once said, "I know people, 100 battles 100 wins." On the East Coast, Scarborough Shoal. After the events of 2012, the dispute over the sovereignty of islands constantly escalating. More and more countries caught up in this conflict, in addition to those made claims. The US, Japan, Australia, also forced to speak out against illegal behavior by China. US intervention does not stop on the East Coast, but also including the East China Sea. Article points out that the nightmare of war between China and the US is becoming a reality. U.S. tactics are applied to increase military presence in response to China's continued illegal construction on the South China Sea islands, eventually leading to a direct confrontation between the two sides militarily. Understanding the face of escalating uncertainty and becomes an ignition spark war. The Daily Telegraph also emphasizes the probability prevent war through diplomacy still exists. The word risk, i.e., crisis, of China has included the dangerous, just how content, opportunity. Like Sun Tzu once said, the supreme art of war is no war. Dead children spend infantry personnel. Expenditures meditator-friendly, which do not need to hit the enemy submission to be considered the most enlightened. Efforts to resolve the South China Sea issue is still being developed. But the militarized behavior increasingly serious East Sea of China is making these efforts into a new war. Recently, the contest of wills between the US and China on the South China Sea incident occurred very stressful. The French news agency AFP said that this time China's strategic facility in Stone Cross appeared just in time. U.S. Defense Secretary to set foot on the carrier market. Tensions high seas on the East Coast. U.S. and Filipino troops began joint patrols at sea. Chinese Defense Ministry also informed immediately. Vice Chairman of China's Central Military Commission Fan Shanglong inspection conducted illegal in some islands, including the Spratly Islands. America has implemented a series of actions to cooperate with the countries of China flexing in the South China Sea issue. 8 quarters day. British Foreign Secretary Philip Hammond said in the dispute over the South China Sea, Britain sided with the United States. Hammond and he also stressed the ruling of the International Court of Arbitration rules should take effect, committed by both China and the Philippines. 19 quarters days. The first time Soryu-class submarines of the Japanese Self-Defense Forces entered the naval base in Sydney, the same day, the Japanese news agency said. Because China is deploying naval operations ocean on the East Coast, Japan and Australia are strengthening cooperation in the field of security. Recently, the Japanese Daily said, after the Philippine Maritime Patrol rent, Japan sending frigate to the South China Sea, Japan next step would like the Japanese Self-Defense Force can operate in the Philippines. Last April, Defense Minister Gen Nakatani. Japan will visit the Philippines. The relationship between the two countries are entering the stage of standard allies. Recently, Vietnam community in Switzerland has organized an exhibition called Sovereignty of Vietnam to the South China Sea in Geneva, submitted at the same time UN Secretary-General application for protest actions militarization of China's South China Sea. Besides, Vietnam community also plans to organize protest activities in Zurich, Switzerland. According to Reuters, a U.S. diplomat revealed the U.S. will transfer to the Philippines an observation balloon to help it monitor the activities on the East Coast and border protection. This airship is equipped with radar systems that can collect intelligence. An expert in military issues, anonymous Chinese, criticized the globe that, currently, the U.S. has turned into objects to push the face of escalating regional or even clues to cause trouble. The current image was very clear picture. The ultimate aim of the so-called Asian rebalancing of America is constraining the development of China. If the U.S. continues like this, sooner or later the two sides of military conflict. China expert at stake.